All right, here we
Yep.
go. Derek Mitchell, Shawn Williams, welcome to How Should I Introduce You? The two of you are guys that I know. Derek and I go back to like 1998, I believe it is.
Yes, sir.
Shawn and I, we don't go back quite that far, but we do have a great relationship, and you two guys are selfless individuals that I've known for quite some time, and I appreciate you guys being a part of, I guess, what I would call an experiment to figure out, how can I be a better servant to the overlapping tribes that I belong to. When I reached out to you, Derek, I asked you, how should I introduce you? And you said to me that you are a Hampton University graduate who is an executive at a minority-owned financing firm. You structure leases and loans for energy projects, technology equipment, and other essential projects for municipal governments. Most importantly, you're a father, you're a husband. You like to absorb good energy, and you like to spread that energy to people and the organizations that you admire the most. And you are an avid golfer, despite the scores not reflecting that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with these scores, man. I'm a golfer, but my scores just don't reflect it. No matter how much I play, I don't get it. It's a weird game.
Yeah, there we go. So, Shawn, I reached out to you as well, and you told me that you are an only child of a single mother. You're also a faithful husband. You've been married for over 16 years. You've got two children, and you couldn't imagine living life without your family. You are the owner of Fortis Mortgage, and you've spent over 15 years helping individuals as well as families obtain mortgage loans. You believe in giving without expectations. You're also an active volunteer with several nonprofit organizations and serving on numerous boards and committees. You've coached basketball for schools and club teams. You also enjoy or used to enjoy golfing, reading, spending time with your family. And you hail out of Central Virginia, and you hold a BA in communication from George Mason University. So that's that. So I do want to start with the golf piece because you both mentioned golf, and I want to share like a brief story of my relationship or lack thereof with golf. Right, before we started recording, we were talking about parents and specifically fathers. And my dad was a blue collar worker. He worked like 40 years for the sanitation department, and also, worked on his own trash truck as well. And so he would often have like negative views on people who had time to play golf, right? He would always say, "I'm a working man. I don't play golf," and things like that. And then when I got to Hampton, I was exposed to a different sort of blackness where you had people who were more upwardly mobile, and they came from families where that was more of a constant in their lives, right? And so for me now at age 41, I've still never really played golf. I've picked up clubs maybe twice in my life, right? And a part of that I think is still like my dad in the back of my mind, like kind of influencing me away from that. But just talk about how you guys got into golf, though.
Well, I'll go first. I mean, like most brothers that got into golf, I got into golf around the Tiger Woods era. Tiger Woods came on the scene, and everybody was, whether you watch golf or not, he was something, to watch. That was the first thing. The second thing, my dad had gotten into it maybe like a couple of years prior or around the same time. And I honestly got drawn to it initially as a way to just have something to do with my dad, who's, 30 years my senior. It's not like we're going out and playing basketball together or knocking each other around, wrestling and things like that. And so I went out with him, and I just fell in love with the game, man. It's like, as an adult, I always say as a kid, when they say go out and play, it's a nice day. You go outside, you run around, you ride your bikes, you do all this stuff outside all day with your friends. But as an adult, I found myself saying, man, okay, it's Saturday. It's a nice day outside. I want to go out and do something. What should I do? I don't know. Just go for a walk maybe. But golf gave me like an activity to do outside that was one, building a camaraderie with my dad, And then two, as I got further along in my career in business, I noticed a lot of the clients and a lot of the coworkers that I would deal with would all talk about golf. And I felt like sort of an outsider because, like you said, I mean, I didn't grow up playing. It wasn't really something that people in my neighborhood did. I got into it as an adult. And even though I got into it, I wasn't really good at it. And I didn't know how hard of a sport it was. And so even after I started, I kind of stopped because I wasn't good. My son was born. I think Shawn can probably attest to this. My son was born, and that took up a lot of time. I just didn't have time, you know, to go out and play golf. But when I started working at the firm I'm with now, all of these guys were like avid golfers. So I found myself once again in a position where, okay, if I'm going to sort of be in with this in crowd and be able to spend 4 to 5 hours with the client, get to know them on a business level and a personal level, I really need to get serious about this game. And so that's when I made it a point to really start taking lessons, practicing, playing more. And now it's just something that I just really enjoy. It clears my mind for 4 to 5 hours. I can't think about family stress, work stress, personal stress. All I'm thinking about is what's the next shot that I need to hit. And there's so many metaphors for life around the game that I won't get fully into, but it helps me to see a lot more clearly a lot of the things that I'm going through in life. So it's more than the game to me. I think that's a slogan for somebody, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's LeBron, right?
I don't know where I heard that from, but it just came from the back of my mind to the front of my mind. And it's so appropriate, you know. It's more than a game. Yeah. So I'll turn it over to Shawn for his experience.
Yeah, how about you, Shawn?
Oh, so for golf, like growing up, some of the kids that I grew up with played golf. So we always played baseball, football, and basketball. And I remember in high school, some of the golf players, they won the state championship. They were really good golfers. And so we would be in the layup line and we'd be teasing them like, y'all don't know what to do. You know, y'all play golf. You know, this is an easy sport. Like, you know, y'all are golfers, man. You got to get with this hoop. So fast forward a few years later, similar to Derek, like mine was different. It wasn't because of a family relationship. I got introduced to it through business. So like my first sales job, the first month in, I got invited to a golf tournament. You know, Derek, they have the Captain's Choice tournaments. And so, you know, where different groups, you know, you pay a fee to get in. And so you hit a ball and you kind of alternate shots. Like you take the best shot of your group and, you know, you take turns kind of hitting the ball. So I then had to call those guys back that was in the layup line with me in high school and be like, man, I need some help. Can y'all give me some clubs? And they're like, oh, you remember when you used to tell us that we weren't real athletes? And they like, have you hit a ball yet? And I was like, I tried, but I am not able to hit it. They're like, oh, okay, now I see. So anyway, I say all to say I got introduced to it through business. And then as time progressed, like Derek mentioned, like the best, a very good way to do business and get to know someone is like, it's very intimate when you're playing golf. Like you're out there, you're riding in the cart with someone or you're walking or you're spending 4 to maybe 6 hours sometimes, depending upon like the pregame and the postgame kind of situation. And most of the time you're not talking about business. You're talking about family. You're talking about telling stories. You're ragging and joking each other, right? You also pick up on like people's mannerisms and, you know, you can kind of pull out like what kind of integrity and everything that they have, because, you know, golf is a gentleman's game and like you ain't supposed to cheat, like, you know, you know, so that kind of thing. And then also like as you progress too as well, like in your career and you start to get around with people that, you know, do have that time or actually make the time to golf, because you make the time to golf because that is an activity that's can be a revenue generator for yourself. You can't go out there and not be, you know, respectable at least. Right. You can't, you got to be respectable. And so that's where, like Derek mentioned, you put in the time to, you know, chip and putt and work on your game. And then it becomes very addictive. So like pretty much with me, I got to a point like everywhere I traveled, I mean, everywhere I scheduled a round of golf, whether it was 9 holes or 18 or whatever. Every trip I took was based around some kind of a golf activity. So it got real addictive for me, very addicting. And so I made the comment in my introduction, Silas, about I used to like golf because I'm not that good anymore because I started the business in 2018. I haven't really had an opportunity to play that much. and I don't like to play now because I don't play that well. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Shawn,
how I got introduced to golf through business.
Shawn, you picked. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that. So I've actually been playing more golf since the quarantine started because golf was one of the first activities that they approved us to do
Yeah.
because you're 6 feet apart, you're outside, etc. And so my wife has been hating it because every day, from the for the last 3 months, at least twice a week, I'm like, okay, I got a golf round scheduled. Me and my boss, we'll go out, we'll talk business, we'll
Really?
talk about just how things are going. And we do it on the golf course, because we can't be confined into a space. So, hey, why not spend 4 hours outside working on your game, talking about business, talking about life? And you really made a good point. One of the reasons I like playing golf from the business perspective is because, Silas, you pick up a lot about people's personalities on the golf course, right? And so, like Shawn said, it's a gentleman's game. So, is this guy shaving strokes off of his score? That might give you a glimpse into his integrity. Is he the type to blow up fast? If he hits a bad shot, does he overreact? Does he throw his clubs? Does he have a bad temper? That'll give me insights into, maybe how to approach certain situations with this person. If I know they are on a short fuse, or if I know that they're a patient person. If it's somebody that's really good at golf, one of my buddies is starting to play golf now, and I tell him the great thing about the sport is everybody starts off at the same place. There's no such thing as a natural golfer. Maybe Tiger Woods is a prodigy, but most of us, nobody's a natural golfer. So anybody that's going out and they're playing really, really well, I know that that's a person that has attention to detail, somebody that has patience, somebody that has stick-to-itiveness, because in order to get to that level, they had to put in the work, whether, taking instruction from somebody else, or reading books about it. They had to do something to get to that level, so it gives me a lot of insight on the people that I deal with just by playing around the golf with them.
Yeah. So for me, two things, Silas. I met some of my best friends in 2005, based on golf. So you guys know I do mortgages. So I did a mortgage for a family, and big brother came to the closing table because he wanted to watch over his little sister and make sure that everything was taken care of. And so he's sitting at the table like this the whole time. And, I'm in there in closing. I'm trying to make everything, just cordial and make it flow and everybody feel comfortable. So I said, did you guys want to go out and grab a bite to eat afterwards, get to know each other a little better? So everybody's like, yeah, we get there. So maybe 5 minutes into the conversation, the word golf came up. Me and this guy have been inseparable since then. The big brother that was overlooking, like we became the best of friends. Every Saturday since then, until I had children, we played golf every single Saturday.
Wow.
And it's just that's just been pretty amazing. I lost my train of thought. There was a second thing that I was go say about that, but it's just like in regards to business wise, when I joined like a golf club, I had my best years ever, like in regards to income and revenue and introductions and travel and stuff like that. Once I started to do that, so I get what your dad is saying, because it might seem like a waste of time, for him, because he would have to take off of work to do something.
Right.
He wouldn't be able to be active. But while Derek and I are out there, at least with modern technology, like we got our phones and, we have, email attached to it. We can get on the internet, stuff like that. We can pop in, off to the side and take a quick phone call or something like that. So it's for those types of purposes, I think it serves us well. Like golf, I couldn't even, like I talked about my kids, not imagine life without them, but I really couldn't imagine like golf not being a part of my life either.
Yeah. The thing that I picked up on as the both of you talked about your experiences playing a game is the word that I took away was trust. And, you gained the trust of other people, and you also made an assessment of whether or not you can trust the people you're playing with as well. Being relatively young, being Black, being in a space where the both of you are in the finance industry, talk a bit about if there may be hurdles in getting people to believe in you, right? So Derek, you set up loans and leases on, major deals. Shawn, your job is to shepherd people through the biggest purchase of their life, right? Their home, right? people see what you do, they know you, but it's a difference between, man, I'm gonna get Shawn to do my mortgage, or I've got a company that needs to buy like large equipment and Derek's my guy, that's my man, but like, can I trust him to do the deal, right? And I know that as young Black men, people kind of put that barrier up between you're my homie and I can trust you to do business. So talk about developing that trust in your respective spaces and finance.
So I can start with that. So I think it's more about like kind of like leverage and who you're associated with. So I was blessed and pretty fortunate that like I came from, I wouldn't even say it was like very diverse, but it's diverse, like the difference of like when I moved to the DC area, like I'm just gonna be honest, I didn't grow up around that many Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did, but not this many. Like here, the Blacks are largely the majority. Like where I came from, Blacks were definitely the minority, tight knit, everything. But we also did activities with, our schoolmates and stuff like that. The college I went through was predominantly white institution, so when I got out of college, like those are the people that I was working with. So they would always introduce me to their friends and such, right? And so I was able to be in a certain or a specific type of circle where, because I was associated with someone, there was a certain level of trust that came with that, right? On the other side, like within the community, I was fine. Like you said, I'm just Shawn. Like everybody trusts me. Everybody knows I'm going to do a good job. But when I was, when I kind of cross over and do a loan or an activity for someone else, based on the people that I was kind of associated with, I feel like that kind of gave me a leg up on somebody else that didn't have that same type of relationship. And so I got pretty fortunate is because the guy that got me into the mortgage business, he was one of the top lenders in the country. Like out of thousands of lenders, they do this top 200 list every year. He was ranked number 7 on the top 200 list. So you could imagine the amount of loans that he was doing. And so I was introduced to the business by being on his team. He didn't look like me, right? But he stood behind me and he vouched for me, right? And so I could still be myself and I could still, navigate and get in those rooms that maybe some of us weren't able to get into because we didn't have that relationship with someone like that. So mine was a little different because of the relationships that I had built with other people, like some diverse experiences, not just white people, but just, other people in general, that are non-Black. So that's how I was able to, kind of navigate in regards to my career.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And same here, I think a big part of it is leveraging, almost like what you're doing here, Silas, is leveraging the relationships that you do have, and getting those people who have built up trust within certain communities and certain organizations, who have a personal relationship with you or a business relationship with you to vouch for you. And a lot of times, in my industry, it's sort of twofold. You have 2 hurdles. One is that, well, I just turned 40, so I don't know if I'm young, but I'm relatively young.
You're young.
And I'm Black, and so most of the clients that I'm dealing with are not Black or, don't look like me and are probably 30 years my senior. If you're dealing with the CFO of a city or a state, these guys are in their 60s and 70s and they're looking at you like, so what can you do for me, right? One of the things that I always come to the table from the outset, and this is personally in business or whatever, I'm not going to tell you that I can perform or I can do something that I'm not sure that I can do. Right. And from the outset, I'll tell you, if you ask me to do a deal for you, if I can structure a deal for you, if I can do it, you'll get a quick yes that I can do it. And if I can't, you'll get a quick no that I can't do it. I always say every deal is not my deal. And as much as that hurts me to walk away from, a deal that I would love to do, I'm not going to put any of my partners, any of my clients in a situation where they end up looking bad. Now, how do I gain that trust? Whereas people think that I'm not just saying that, but that's actually something I can do. That's where the leveraging of the previous relationships come from. I don't have any client on my roster right now that can go and say that Derek did something to hurt me in this deal, or I came out looking bad in this deal because of something Derek did. Did we not see eye to eye on something? Maybe so. Do I wish that he could have done something that he couldn't do? Maybe so. But he let me know very upfront. He was very transparent. And I think that goes a long way with people. So in the short term, that may hurt me, especially earlier in my career. You know, I'm in my early 30s and I'm just looking to get some points on the board. You know, I need somebody to believe that this young black 30-year-old kid can actually handle a 30, 40, $50 million deal and not screw it up. Well, you start slow, right? It was a good book that I read. It's called Eat the Frog or something like that. It was years ago. And they said you eat it, you know, just one bite at a time, or you eat it first thing in the morning, you just
First
get
thing
it
in
out
the
the
morning.
way, first thing in the morning. So what I did was went after difficult deals that nobody wanted to do, you know, sort of like clients where maybe they had bad credit. Nobody's really rushing to their side to really aid them in acquiring the money that they need to take on infrastructure projects or gain IT equipment, things like that. Well, even if I couldn't get it done, I got no other client. So what I do have is time. I have time to coach you through it. Here's how we can elevate your credit. We can structure it like this. And, you know, basically just giving them that hand holding that no other lender is going to give to them, you know. And so even if we don't get a deal done, later on, these people move from Washington, D.C. to Newark, New Jersey. And now the treasurer of Washington, D.C. may be the CFO in New Jersey. And we didn't get a deal done in D.C., but he's trying to get something done in Newark, and he's wondering, who can I trust? Who can I call? I'm going to call Derek because I know he's going to keep it straight with me. So it's a slow process, but that's how I've built my clientele.
Hey, Silas, another thing too, is like, if in business, and Derek, you know, hopefully you can appreciate this too as well. If you take yourself out of the situation, right? Because at the end of the day, it's business. It's not about you. Like me personally, I've always had a sort of a chip on my shoulder. Like, I know I'm black. You can see it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this, you can tell the way I talk, the way I look. But at the end of the day, I always felt like I belonged in the room. Even though I knew I had to work twice as hard, to be twice as smart, I still felt like that I belonged in the room. And so that was a part of my mission, was to get there, to show everybody, to prove everybody like, hey, I can be here, but then also to pull up everybody else that, you know, maybe, you know, needed some help, getting to that particular point. And so, like, I feel like if you treat business with honesty, integrity, and transparency, then that takes you a long ways. Like Derek said, if it ain't your deal and you take it and it goes sideways, having a bad reputation will destroy you. Like, it'll crush you. But people, right? People will remember that you said, like, this is not my deal. However, Derek across the street, he focuses on this type of business, right? Or he can get this deal done. Here's Derek's number. Give him a call, or you do a conference call or whatever it might be and do that introduction with Derek. Derek gets that deal done in a way. So I still didn't make any money, right? In a way, though, I still got that deal done.
And you created value.
I still created value and got that deal done. And so, like, what I'm hearing Derek say is, like, if we continue to create value for people, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. At the end of the day, I mean, you got to prove yourself, obviously. But if you continue to add value to people, they must use your services. Like, they don't have a choice. Like, you know, you just got to keep adding value.
Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Shawn, you stepped away from working under someone else's structure, and you now have your own mortgage company. And before we started recording, you talked about taking the suit off, right? And, you know, in this period that we're in right now in the country, and really the world for that matter, there are a lot of people, specifically Black people, that are considering a path that will eliminate working under someone else's structure and starting their own thing. I know a lot of us are like antsy about that, but how did you know that you were well prepared to do that?
Because I had gotten to a point where I climbed the ladder as far as I felt like I could have gone in the industry, right? So I started as a loan officer, went to become a branch manager, went to become a district manager, and then I was an executive vice president, you know, head of production for a company, on paper, number 4 in the company, right? And then that situation, we parted ways. And so I'm sitting there and we're thinking about it. And it's like, Shawn, you spent 15 years in this industry doing what you do. I reached out to a few people to kind of find out some information about, going into business for myself. Previously, I didn't know that the technology was available, right, to do the business, because when you work for a large organization, you have an enterprise situation where you have an IT department and you have everything that goes on, and you just walk in the office, you flip the switch, and everything works, right? Then also, I thought I might have had to have millions of dollars saved liquid to get into the situation. So when I parted ways with my last company, I called my financial advisor over because I was talking to my wife, like, listen, if you want me to, I'll go work. I can go get a job. I wasn't not trying to sound arrogant, but it's in sales. Like, if you have a career in sales, you can go sell anything. You can go get a job anywhere, right? And so I'm like, all right, I could go be a loan officer and slang loans again, do loans again. I could, become go somewhere and be a branch manager and build a team like I've done before and just do that. I could stay on this executive track, right? But then when something goes sideways with the economy or whatever it might be, if you're not producing, that sometimes, especially if you consider middle management, that becomes an issue, right? And then I thought about it, and I'm like, all right, cool. I think I want to do this for myself. So I called my financial advisor up. I was like, because my wife, she's pretty conservative. I'm like, listen, can you come to the house tonight? He's like, yep. And I said, what I want you to do is sit with my wife, tell her how much money we have saved and how much runway we have before it runs out. So I put them in the room. They talked. I went in my office. I was doing my business plan, creating P&Ls, doing all kinds of stuff to try to figure out how to run my business. And then they called my name. They say, Shawn. And I walked back into the kitchen because that's where they were sitting. And he gave me the thumbs up. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. Is she shaking her head or whatever? And then the one thing that got me, like in regards to, because I'm sentimental when it comes to family and stuff. So my daughter told me that same night, because I wanted to, because I've taken jobs before and I've changed positions because, with us, we're trying to come up and we're trying to climb the ladder. And I never really asked for permission. It was more or less like, I'm taking this job. Like, we need this. This is it for us. Like, I'm telling them, like, this is the best thing for us. I didn't ask if they thought it was the best thing for us and if it was okay. So this time I said, I'm not going to do this unless I got everybody's buy-in, from my wife to the kids. So my daughter was like, Daddy, don't worry about it, because when you get old, I'm just going to take over the business anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's go. So Silas, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but for me, it was a shift, like where I parted ways with a company, and I had some time to think. I had some time to think about where I wanted to go with my career, and I had put that 15 years in. I realized that the technology was there for me to start this company, and I realized that I had enough capital and enough money saved and resources available and relationships to start this company, because at the end of the day, whether I do loans for myself or I do loans for someone else, I'm still helping people get, home loans. And so all the stars aligned, and it allowed me to start this company. And, 2 years later, we're doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think about, so the previous conversation I had with two people on here, there were two women, right? And we talked about them being in relationships and the idea of permissions, right? So you brought that up, you and your wife, Shawn, and your children, and asking permission to make a move. And that's not something that we typically, at least hear men admit to. Some men go without permission. Some men ask for permission, but they don't relay that to their friends, right? And you guys both talked about being happily married. I'm happily married. How do you balance making sure that your family is up to speed on your vision and what you want to do, what you're preparing to do, and that idea of making sure that you have permission from them to make the sacrifice of time, money, whatever it may be, to get that thing done?
Well, for me, me and my wife, I mean, we, like most wives, they talk about everything, man. I mean, it's like, as soon as I come in the door, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. But my wife and I both, I mean, it's beneficial to us. We're both sort of long range planners. And so, I mean, Shawn's story just sort of prompted so many thoughts in my head. and to piggyback off of his story, to give an example of that, Silas, when I was sort of at a crossroads in my career, and Shawn, I'm a sales guy too, so I was shaking my head and smiling when you said what you said. But I was at a point in my sales career where I had to make or ask myself, do I want to do this for the next 10 to 20 years? Because I felt like I had sort of maximized my potential where I was. And like Shawn said, it came to a point where some decisions had to be made in the company about laying people off. And that had been that had happened before, but I was never on the chopping block because I had always been a high performer. And so it comes to the point where this time around, though, I am on the chopping block. And we talk about not taking business very personal, but I took that very personal because it was almost like, how can you do this to me, right? And so long story short, they ended up, instead of laying me off, hiring me back, but I had to interview my position and go through some hoops that I felt like I shouldn't have had to go through. And right then and there, I told my wife, I said, babe, look, I don't know where we're going to be a year from now, but I'm already planning my exit. So we're going to sort of trim the fat around here. We're going to save some money up. I'm going to do everything I can to make as much money as I can, win every sales award I can within this next 12 to 18 months. And I don't know what the opportunity is going to be or if there is going to be one, but I want us to be prepared for it. She was like, okay, cool, let's go. Almost a year to the day, I'm sitting around and I'm having a meeting with my now CEO. This is somebody I had known in personal circles for, I don't know, 10 plus years, but never really talked business. We just sort of talked in passing. I'm getting my MBA in finance, and I just went to talk to him about real world applications of what I was learning in the classroom. Had a good meeting. Fast forward maybe 2 months from that point, he said, look, I could really use somebody around the office that's young, that's smart, that can give a different perspective on things, et cetera. You know, it's summer. If you want an internship, it's yours. I'm like, well, you know, I work full time. I got a wife. I've got a 1-year-old kid. You know, coming to work for you, I'm making 6 figures. I got the company car, the whole bells and whistles and everything. But then I remembered the conversation with my wife before, whereas I didn't know what the opportunity was going to look like. And a lot of times opportunities don't really look like opportunities when you're faced with them. To me, it's just like, you're offering me something that can't benefit me right now. So the answer needs to be no. But once again, I came home, I talked about it with my wife just to get her perspective. And her first reaction was, well, of course you can't take an internship. You'd have to quit your job and this, that, and the other thing. You have to call them and tell them no. Because my answer is never no off the bat. It's like, let me think about it. Mm-hmm. So went to sleep, thought about it. I woke up the next morning and I remembered going back a year, do I want to be doing what I'm doing right now for the next 10 to 15 years? I knew the answer to that question was no. But I couldn't just unilaterally say, okay, I'm going to quit my job and take this internship. So again, I had to go to my wife and say, look, I know we talked about this last night, and I know it may not make perfect sense right now, but I feel like I'm going to regret not taking this opportunity if I don't do it. I always wonder what if, you know, what could have been had I taken it. And because we're both planners, you know, we have our monthly financial meetings. I usually take the lead on that, but my wife gives her input on where our finances are, how much money we have saved, how much money we have invested. Probably very similar to what Shawn's wife and his financial advisor did when he wanted to step out. And, you know, I said, I'm well established in my career. Like Shawn said, I'm a sales guy. I can go sell anything, anywhere. I can get a job. So that's not really going to be an issue. And even if it takes me a while to get there, we've got money saved up. We've been preparing for this for a year. And with that open, honest communication and everybody saying, you know, the facts for what they were, my wife said, well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. You know, and so I think it makes perfect sense to ask permission and not just on our side, but even on the women's side or whoever you're with, you know, your spouse, your significant other, you have to be willing to be, if you can't be open, honest, and vulnerable with that person, then you just will never be that person in any aspect of your life. And more times than not, when you do that, you're going to get a whole new perspective that you didn't even think about, or get a blessing that you didn't even think was going to come to you. So, you know, I run everything past my wife. I make no shame about that.
Yeah. That's a really good example of a partnership. And you know, I also look at the careers of people that I admire And there's often a correlation between their growth and development as a professional and their growth and development in their household with their spouses and their children. And I think that's the one thing that, now that I have a daughter, I want to be able to be an example of what it is to be well-rounded, like to grow and excel at the work that we do, but then also to be examples of what it is to solidify family and the importance of that. And I think specifically being Black in this time of like civil unrest, showing examples of family is really, really important to me. And so as you guys talked, I began thinking about this question of being free. What does that mean, right? So Shawn, you talked about, again, stepping away from someone else's organizational structure. Derek, you talked about saving money and being able to walk away from, one opportunity and picking up on a different opportunity. But then freedom comes in so many different ways, and it shows itself in so many different examples. And as we talk about like the civil unrest was happening right now throughout the country and the world, before we started officially recording, Derek, you talked about just being online and social media and trying to balance, sharing your thoughts, but also governing yourself as a leader in your space. What has that been like for the both of you, just looking at what's going on in the country, but knowing that on an everyday basis, you're dealing with people that don't look like you, who may not understand the layers that you're dealing with in terms of how you process what you see online?
I'll try that one. So for me, I've always felt like that I could be myself, right? But I know I haven't always been myself. I played it safe a lot, right? And so I'm telling people now, I talk to a lot of people, and to be honest with you, I've never been more free in my life than the way I feel right now, right? Because like I don't have to, I do step on eggshells sometimes because I want to be sensitive to different types of people and folks around me, right? But however, it's not tied to some kind of corporate speak. It's not tied to not getting involved with social issues and religion and politics and stuff because I'm afraid that I'm going to affect my job, right, and get fired from my job or something like that, or make the organization that I work for look bad. So, like in regards to freedom, for me, that's been very important because now, with the activities that I can do with my business, I really learned that the people who want to do business with you, right, are going to do business with you whether they, no matter what. So if they don't like you, they don't trust you, they don't know who you are, they're not going to do business with you anyway, no matter who they are, right? So I think you should spend time focusing on the people that really appreciate you, who support you, who rock with you. And so that's what I went all in on that when we started this business, to say, hey, listen, these are the folks that support our business. These are the people that we want to identify to do business with. And that's who we're going to continue to work with. The whole social media thing, that's become a distraction for me. A big distraction. What I like to, and what I have been doing over the years is, like you said, just telling stories, just showing positive stuff. Like, when you're out with your kids doing things, because they, certain people think that, we're not in our child's lives, right? Certain people think that, we're all in bad situations, or, we're criminals or whatever it might be. I mean, I know some criminals, I know some bad people, but we all do, right? But largely in my entire circle, I just know positive people, just positive people in general. And so I think if we just continue to tell those stories and show people what it looks like to be a Black man, right? That's half the battle. Like some of the initiatives that, I see people taking, that's not my thing, right? But I'm not going to back down, from playing it too safe. Like, I'm going to speak my mind. If it's not right and if it doesn't feel right, I am going to continue to speak up about it. But my thing is all about action, like all about action. I'm going to show you, how I do it, right? And I'm going to have a call to action for you to take action on it as well. So that's where I see the freedom being for me. Is just not having to worry about placating somebody else and really focus on what I can control in my network, in my circle, in my household.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, Silas, it's like, I guess as a sometimes as a hindrance, but many times it's helpful that I'm a very logical thinker. I don't really get too hot or cold, one way or another when it comes to issues. Even if it's, if I believe this, and you're over here and you believe that, I would love to talk to you to find out why you feel differently, And so from a work standpoint, like you said, most of the people that I'm dealing with don't look like me, don't have the background that I have. But we talked about value adds earlier. I feel like my experience and my perspective is a value add for you. So you should want to hear my perspective on this. And if you don't, you don't, and that's fine. But let's have a conversation about it. And I always say that if I grew up like you, if I had the background that you had, I would probably think the same way that you do. That's just in any interaction that I have with folks. So, I don't condemn anyone for thinking differently about things than I do. And I just ask that, they not do the same thing for me, give me the benefit of the doubt in all cases. And most of the time they do that. And generally, for the most part, I stay away from these conversations just because, like Shawn said, I'm about action. And if I'm talking to somebody that can't produce an action to help, rectify a situation that I feel strongly about, then that's just not a conversation that I'm going to engage in anyway. Now it does sort of sting a little bit if somebody happens to make a comment that is a little insensitive or what have you. But, I'm the type of person that I've been in many situations where I've had to keep my cool. And I'm the type of person that will say, well, tell me why you feel that way. What led you to believe that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization? Are you basing this on factual information that you heard, or just something that you heard through the media, something that you read through a fraudulent website? And it's fact finding. Let me know where you're getting your information from. Let me know if you're the type of person that's just going to believe anything that you're told, because that's another thing that I'll put in the back of my mind. I can tell this cat anything. He'll just regurgitate it or remember it, whatever. And so anything that I talk to you about, I'm just going to sort of sit on that. And instead of trying to change your mind, I just want to come away with a better understanding of who you are as a person. And if we can agree to disagree on something, that's fine too. But most of the time, I'm not looking for the people that I deal with to really understand socially, what's going on and see things from my perspective. And we can still get a deal done, even if they don't.
Right. Hey, Silas, like even with football, there were situations where they would have office pools and stuff like that. And I pulled out of football 3-4 for this would be the fourth season.
Mm-hmm.
But I never said why. I'm just like, hey guys, it's fine. You guys do the football pool. I know it's going to be a lot of fun. What's going on in football right now? I would ask questions like that. And they'd be like, you know what? And I'm like, nah, I just stopped watching football, just some of the things I don't really agree with. And I would just leave it there. Whereas like the suit off Shawn will have a sort of a totally different conversation about it. I would speak more freely now about why I didn't support the NFL. Whereas before I had to be and feel like I had to be a little bit more politically correct and a little bit more delicate on the way I handle certain situations and topics.
Right.
So that's the freedom that I feel like I have now.
Yeah.
But, you also talk about freedom, like, financially and stuff, to just be able to put yourself in a situation where even if you're struggling at the moment, that you planted these proper seeds and put a plan in place so that in the future you're good. And that's also, a big form of freedom that I think is very important that we need to be, focused on as well.
Yeah. So
Silas, I'm just sorry. Let me piggyback off of that too, because Shawn, this would be a good question for you, because my perspective has always been that you're never 100% free. I mean, you're always free to do and say things that you care to say and do, but you're also free to reap the repercussions from what you say and do.
Consequence for everything.
Yeah, and so a lot of people feel like, well, I don't want to work for the man anymore. I want to take the suit off so that I can be free and do what I want to do, right? But I always say, as a business owner, and I'm not a business owner, so this is why I'm directing it to Shawn.
Yeah.
But as a business owner, your customer is still your boss, right? I mean, you're still working for someone, whether they cut your check through a paycheck or they're cutting you checks through patronizing your business. So you can't just stand on a pedestal and say, well, this is what I think, this is what I feel. I'm a business owner and everybody has to get in line. You know, you still have to walk a fine line of responsibility and speech and action and balance that between the repercussions that you're willing to take from that. Would you agree, or you feel differently?
Oh, no, I totally agree, because at the end of the day, you're servicing someone, and you have to be conscious that there are other views outside of yours as well. So it ain't about me. I'm not the one that's getting the mortgage. It's you that's getting the mortgage. So I have to be able to relate to you. Like I said, know, like, and trust, right? So I was even having an issue with it as well, like certain things that my marketing team wanted to do, because I see all these companies getting behind writing these memos about Black Lives Matters now, the blackout, all this symbolism that's going on right now, right? So I'm like telling them, like, okay, do we really want to do this because everybody else is doing it? Or do we want to do these things because we really truly believe in it, right? And then also, how do our clients feel about it too as well? So Derek, to answer your question, yeah, I would think it would be very irresponsible for me as a business owner to go out there and be like super radical about it, right? Because all my clients aren't radical about certain things. If I wanted to really only have clients that are radical, then I can just be that, and I can be that for them. But my purpose is to create a business that's going to outlive me, right? This is not about me. The business is also to create opportunities and jobs for people that are living right now, right? It's also for me, all I ever want to do is be a hero in my household. So I want my kids to be proud of it too as well. You know, and I want this to be a family thing. My mother retired, right, back in 2018, right around the time that that I started the business, right? And so thank God, like, I was able to give my mother a job to work with us, and she keeps the books. I couldn't think of anybody else better that I want in my books at work for finances, right? To take care of it. So she gets another stream of income, right? And also, selfishly, it's not like I have to stroke her a check every month for just sitting there. She's actually adding value to our business, right? And that's helping her too as well. So, like, in regards to, you know, starting and owning a business, I don't think that any business owner, at least I'm not, is in it for the money. Money's a big part of it, and we, you know, and money's fine, but there's a bigger picture. The more people you serve, the more people you help, the money's a pleasant side effect of all of that.
So we talked a bit about that freedom piece, and we also, prior again to us recording, talked a bit about family, specifically parental influence on our lives, right? In the previous conversation I had with Tania and Kendra, I talked to them about a book that I'm reading right now that's called The Way of the Superior Man. And in that book, he talks about growth and freedom and going to the next level. And he, in a really unique way, describes the paternal influence on our lives in some instances as a barrier for growth. And he poses a question, you know, what would you do if your father were not in the way of your development, if you didn't seek the approval of your father, or if you didn't think about, you know, the imperfections of your father, right? And you talked, Shawn, about being, you know, in a single parent household. Derek, you talked about your dad before we got on here live, and talked about the notions and kind of the nudges that he gives you from time to time. As you all grow and your fathers now, your husbands now, you know, are, you know, running your household and running your careers and things like that, has there been a moment where you had to take a sidestep and say, I'm my own man, I want to do things a certain way? What was that moment like for the both of you? And do you feel like completely free of that, I don't want to say a cloud, but that person over your shoulder, whether it's a mom, a dad, a grandparent, whoever it may be, you know, just living your life the way you want to live it? and just kind of leading your own path?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. You know, I have great respect for my my dad, you know, my mom as well. But I mean, I've always been the type of cat that's going to do what he wants to do. Like that's just, and fortunately for me, you know, my dad has accepted me as that kind of person, you know, and so like you said, he'll give me little nudges, but he's not a presence in my life that's like, Derek, don't do that, because he knows I'm going to do it, you know, if that's what I'm setting my mind to. But once again, like I said, I'm a long range planner. So I think that him having the trust in me, one, it helps me to know that because he has that trust in me, it helps me to, how am I trying to put this? It gives an extra layer of thought, you know, when I am deciding to do something, because he trusts me to not be reckless. I make sure that I'm not going to be reckless, right? So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy when he tells me, hey, you know, I'm proud of you. You've grown into a great father, husband, son, just a great man in general. And I know you're going to make the right decisions. So when it comes time for me to decide on doing something, I'm almost fearless when it comes to that, because I have his blessing, and he's somebody that I respect, you know, as an older man and somebody that raised me from birth. You know, for him to tell me that, I don't walk around with a cloud over what he's going to think. I mean, I'm cognizant of, you know, how would he think, how would my grandfather, who's now deceased, you know, what would he think if he saw me saying or doing this? It's something that I'm cognizant of, but it's almost like a helpful push for me more than it is a hindrance. And I look to emulate that in my own household. You know, I don't want to be the what I say goes type of dad. You know, we sit around, my son is 9, and I talk to him like, you know, he's a grown up. You know, why do you think this way? How would you do it differently? What do you think that your role in how this went wrong was? You know, and we talk about it, we converse, and I think that helps him to grow, and it helps me to grow. And I think that's how it should be. At least that's what's benefited me.
Yeah, you've got a great dad because his name is Silas.
Oh, your dad, Silas.
True.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad and my granddad, both Silases.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. When I met Silas at college, I said, bruh, in 18 years, I have never met anybody outside of my family named Silas.
This Mr. Silas Grant right here is the first Silas that I've ever met.
Oh, man, it was amazing. I said, I know you good people, man. You have to be good people with that name.
So for me, I mean, I had a dad, but I grew up without a father.
Mm.
So Silas, I mentioned to you earlier, like I've seen you more times than I've seen my father. Like, so this is gonna sound really weird, but just stay with me. The biggest weight got lifted off of my shoulder at my father's funeral. So I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna tell you a quick story about it. So my dad, I remember seeing him throughout my life a few times, like some milestone situations, like when I was like 12 years old, came to visit, brought me baseball glove, balls and stuff like that. We played catch. High school graduation, which is where I met my 2 sisters for the first time in my life, because my father had a family, right? So also like graduation, my wedding. The biggest time that I can remember when I got an opportunity to see my father was this whole corporate thing. Remember, I was trying to climb the ladder, prove to everybody that I made it. So in sales, you can make some good money. In 2005, things were really good for my industry. I bought a nice car. I had a little bit of money. So I called my sister up like, hey, let's take dad to a 76ers basketball game. I'm on the way up the road. I got tickets. Let's do it. Because I'm just kind of like flossing, like to just show, hey, look what we did without you, right? So I get there, and anytime I'd ever been around my father, we've never been alone, like one-on-one. So I asked her this time, I'm like, look, would it be cool if you just, I don't know how to ask you, but just, can you just leave? Just like, let us like kind of hang out. So when I got a chance to hang out with my dad at his house, he lives in Camden, New Jersey. In one of the worst projects in Camden, is where he lived. So we were there, no big deal, but that kind of a backstory to like kind of how his life was. When we talked, he pulled out a box. Every letter, every knickknack, Father's Day gift, anything I've ever sent him in his life was right there, right? Pictures of me, everything. So we started to talk, and he was telling me about his life and, like, you know, situation with drinking and drugs and stuff like that, and just feeling ashamed for not being able to be there with me. So we go to the basketball game that night, and he's like, man, I haven't been to a game since I was like a little boy. And he's a little bit older than my mom, and he's dating back to players that we never even heard about, like he was talking about, right? Fast forward a couple months later, my sisters are like, you know, dad's in the hospital because he only had one kidney and he was having some issues with the other one. He's in the hospital, and I think you need to come and see him because he's not going to make it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to see him. He's good too, right? Because we had that conversation, and we finally had that connection where I'm like you good in my book. I forgive you, you know what I'm saying? Because I know you cared and you had all this stuff, and we got an opportunity. So they were a little mad. So then I go to the funeral. Guys, look, I had an out of body experience at the funeral. I wound up in the pulpit. I don't know how I got there. I'm standing right beside the preacher as he preaching, and he looks at me and he's like, son, you all right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got something you want to say? And I'm like, and then I just start speaking about like this same kind of story. Like, hey, these, you know, y'all know me. Well, no, actually, y'all don't know me, but y'all know me as being that son, that the secret son, right? And then basically, I just kind of told the same similar type of story. And I was like, and I was talking to my sisters, I want everybody here to know that we're at peace. Like, everything is good. Y'all don't have to worry about anything. He's fine. He's a good man. We're going to be all fine. That thing right there was something that like took the biggest weight off of my shoulder that I've ever had, because I grew up without a father, when my friends had fathers and stuff like that. And, you know, my mom having to raise me and just the community and stuff like that. So for me, I've been playing it by ear because, you know, Derek, Silas, like you know, I would have loved to have had what you guys had, like that relationship with a father, you know, outside of a grandfather or uncle or, you know, friends that you might have grown up with. But now all I'm doing is just playing it by ear. And like you said, Derek, like I'm not holding anything back from my son. Like, I wanted to have that type of relationship with him where we can talk about anything, where he understands how the world is, where he understands that there's consequences behind the actions that he makes. So Silas, like, mine is a bit different because I didn't have a father growing up. It was my mother, my grandfather, my uncles, and just the community around us that really like was guardian angels around me. Like, sometimes I live with guilt because I'm like, wow, I came out unscathed.
That's a really powerful story, man. As you were saying that, it made me think about how in this period that we're in, all of us in one way or another, we're starting fresh, right? We're trying to do more than what our parents did before us, do more than just people of our race did in general, right? Given everything that we're dealing with right now, COVID-19, civil unrest, the plight of Black people, you both are in finance. What do you think is essential for us as a people to take the next step to grow, to advance, to build on all of the I guess the legacy of the civil rights movement, the movements before that? You know, what do you think the steps are right now, just considering that you both are in finance, and finance is such a big part of, you know, tribes and circles growing?
I think what we're doing, and I'm gonna let you, because I'm not gonna talk much about this.
Go ahead, Shawn. I'm just gonna turn my light on real quick because it's getting dark here.
So, Silas, what you're doing right now is what you're doing right now is what we need to be doing. Mm-hmm. The connections and connecting all of us, that's exactly what we need to be doing right now. I think our network is going to be the thing to push us to the next level, because as you know, but the biggest thing that we lack is capital. Like ingenuity, the whole technology, the know-how, the relationships, we got all that. We just have a hard time pulling together like resources, like in regards to capital. And I think if we continue to network with each other and support each other, trust each other. I think as Black businesses too as well, you got to also remember we got to give each other some grace, right? Because we don't have the same type of resources as some of the bigger companies that, you know, have had access to those resources for years and years. When we mess up, okay, let us have it, but help us understand how we can be a better company and better serve you, and just not cut us some slack all the way, but like give us some leeway. Like even nowadays, there's some companies out there, restaurants and stuff, because it's, you know, we're supporting Black businesses that ain't never had this much business before, right? So they're trying to adapt to doing business in this type of way. So to answer your question, to me, Derek, I'm gonna pass it to you, but it's pretty simple. If we support each other, the ones that we trust, because I ain't about to refer nobody to anybody that I don't trust or that I think can get the job done, like Derek mentioned. But if we have a tight circle of people that provide services that we know we can trust and we can connect each other, then there's no stopping us, no stopping.
Yeah, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. And sorry I had to step away when you initially started speaking, but you know, Silas, that's a really a multi-layered question. So we could probably talk 2 hours just on that. But you know, from a finance standpoint, we have to support each other. Like Shawn said, you know, make a concerted effort to consistently support each other. I'll say that it can't just be in response to, you know, something that is the issue of the day. But I mean, consistently, you know, supporting each other. Like Shawn said, giving each other that leeway to, you know, make mistakes. You know, if you go to a Ruth's Chris restaurant and they burn your steak, you don't throw the whole Ruth's Chris away. You know, they make you another steak and you give them a second chance. Routinely, we haven't done that with each other, and I think we need to do more of that. But also from a personal accountability standpoint, like I said, my wife and I, we pay attention to our finances. I mean, stringently. Every single month, we have a quote unquote meeting between the two of us, review our finances, our assets, our liabilities, etc., and being conscious about what's going on with our money. Most of the time, especially in our community, when I talk to people, I find they just aren't conscious about where their money's going. If I ask you, and this isn't to put anybody on the spot, but I'll ask just to make the point, you know, how much do you spend a year going out to eat? I don't know. People don't know that, right? Okay, you know how much you pay for your car. You have a car note. How much money of your money goes towards your car note every year? I don't know. And so if you look at what you make versus what you bring home versus what you spend, I mean, that's step number one to knowing, okay, the plan I have for me, for my family is going to require this much money. In order for me to get there, I may need to cut certain things out. Or I may need to take that new job that I didn't really want to take, but it's paying more. So maybe I take that job now, right? And so I think paying closer attention to your finances from a personal accountability standpoint is definitely step one, and supporting each other may be 1A. I think they're one and the same, you know. And in my business, a lot of times as a graduate of an HBCU, HBCUs will reach out to me and my company to get funding for any type of essential need that they have, whether it be infrastructure, a new building, IT equipment, or what have you. And the problem that I always run into, man, I mean, always consistently run into, is that if it's not a state-funded HBCU, like a Morgan State or something like that, even Hampton, which has a lot of money, they don't have the support of the alumni in terms of giving back that we like to see. And the financials are never really as robust. They have to pay more for faculty, even though they're paying less compared to PWIs. You know, as it relates to their revenue, they sort of overpay for administrators and faculty. And so it's like, as much as I want to give you a loan for something, I can't really justify it unless you kind of clean this up a little bit. You know what I mean? And so I think that we have to do the same on a personal level, you know, the same way I ask these institutions to do, you know, from a household perspective. You know, let's not chase the latest and the greatest thing just because it's going to make us feel good, but put a plan in place and figure out how you're going to achieve that plan. You know, that's what I did when I had to make a decision to leave my company back in the day. It was, okay, we've been spending X amount of money on these things, but right now we're going to tighten up our belt and start stashing money away, because a rainy day is going to come. We just don't know when it's going to come, you know. And I think we have to be able to stand on our own 2 feet as a community. And the biggest way to do that, man, is to pay attention to your finances and to support each other.
Yeah. Hey, Silas, I got to have a question for you.
Sure.
Like, what are you seeing out there? Like, we did the thing with Mike back in January, and you heard me speak about the fact that people, it's not about like what you qualify for on a mortgage, right? It's about what you can actually afford. People come to me and they're like, what do I qualify for? I'm like, well, I can tell you that, but it's really all about like, how much can you afford to spend? Because you have certain things that are going on outside of, just paying that mortgage each month. So my question to you is like, what kind of services and what kind of education are you seeing out there, like within the community that you work? Because I know you service a lot of people. And then I feel like that's something that's really missing, is that education, because they don't always have people like me, you, and Derek out there talking to them.
Yeah, so there are a lot of programs, and I use that term a lot loosely. I think there's access to programs. The information is being disseminated, but I think now more than ever, there are more options for people to be communicated to, but that makes it difficult, right? So you're talking about email, social media ads, YouTube ads, mailers. If you live in DC specifically, there's so many programs for the development of people to get them to, that pathway to the middle class, or that idea of upward mobility. But I think a lot of people are distracted, and people aren't taking the time to really focus in on, okay, I want to develop in this area, right? Whether it be financial, or if it's an educational component that may be missing. There's so many programs out there that I think people don't always stop to look for them. I took a class at UDC's community college. I took a project management class, not because I wanted a PMP, but I used Snapchat and Instagram to show people that it was free. So I would go to class every day. I studied and all that, but I would just post my homework on Instagram, and I wanted to get people motivated to continue to go to school, right? And to this day, there are people that don't know that if you have a DC ID, you can go to UDC's community college and pick up whatever certification you want to take, right? There are certain requirements for certain classes, but most of the classes, the threshold is really low. And so I bring up that example, even though it's not directly related to financial management or financial growth or financial intelligence. The ability to gain a certification so that you can grow financially, I think, is more of an encouragement for a person. If they have a new job with a higher salary, they may be more inclined to seek financial assistance. I think there's some people who, because they're struggling from their career perspective, that also leaves them in a state of struggle in terms of being honest about that and reaching out to people to say, hey, my salary is not where I want it to be. I'm just going to deal with it, versus saying, hey, I'm not where I want to be financially in terms of what I'm producing, but I'm also not where I need to be in terms of how I can serve what I bring in. So I think the programs are there. I think it's just a matter of us living in a state of disruption and distraction all the time now, that people aren't necessarily taking advantage because they're just distracted. And I think another thing, to your point, Derek, about being more intentional about finances, we've got to also be more intentional about how we budget our psyche, right? What we're looking at, the content that we consume, the foods that we consume, the way in which we, consider wellness, whether it be jogging, treadmill, weightlifting, whatever it may be. I think we've got to also try to find ways to budget our time as much as we do money as well. I think that right now, we talked earlier about social media, and I see Derek Sharena made a post the other day where she said, 1 week people are like police experts, the next week they're like religious experts, and it's like they haven't had a break for the last 3 months because every topic, they've got something to say on it. So, man, we got to stop being blown around by the wind. And we just got to like put our flag in the ground and kind of stand on what we think is the most important thing to focus on in our own personal lives. And Shawn, I think if we could manage to do that, then people would see what's right in front of them as far as access to programs.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing I'll say on the finance piece too, Silas. I tell people, you know, the easiest way to make money is to conserve and spend less money. Of course, you know, the fastest way to get more money in your pocket is to spend less, but also a fast way to, you know, a lot of people, we talked about freedom earlier, and a lot of people have this notion where, you know, it's like, I just have to be in love with what I do. And if I'm going to work, and even though I'm earning a decent salary, you know, I'm not in love with the work. So that means I need to like leave and do something else. But a lot of times a job is a means to an end, right? And so it's like, if we're going to get more financially stable as a community, then we need as many resources as possible coming into that community. And so it might be as simple as you just going to your supervisor or your boss and asking them straight up. It's like, look, we haven't had any merit increases in 3 years. You know, I'm looking to increase my income. What do I need to do in order to earn a 3 or 5 or 10% raise or whatever it is that you are looking to get, you know, and lay out a plan with that person to say, okay, look, if I hit these metrics, then this is the bonus that I can expect to receive, or this is the raise that I can expect to receive next year, right? And then you just attack that plan, attack it religiously, you know, because you got a plan in place for what you want to accomplish. You can't just expect to go to work every day and expect some boss to appreciate you enough to where it's like, okay, now I want to turn over the keys to the department and you're running stuff. You know, you have to be intentional about your finances, but also be intentional about your goals and how you're going to go about achieving those goals. So, I mean, intentionality is big with me. And I think, you know, if more people focused in on not just complaining about attaining more wealth and keeping more wealth, but actually putting a plan in place to achieve it, man, I mean, they would accomplish in 1 year what other people would take 10 years to accomplish.
Yeah, planning is everything when it comes to our finances. You know, having a plan is everything.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, man, this has been like a really, really great conversation. I think that you all have really enlightened me a lot about career growth and being intentional with that. And, you know, there are a lot of great takeaways from this. And I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to be a part of this. My goal, as always, is to add value by showing people that our circles have to become tighter, especially now. So I'm thankful that, you know, I got a chance to introduce the two of you. And I'm also thankful that other people that watch this will get a chance to be introduced to the both of you. So I appreciate you guys, man, 1,000,000%.
Appreciate you, my brother. And Shawn, my goal coming out of this is to get you on the golf course more.
Oh, you want a lesson? But I was gonna ask you, that was gonna be my next question. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, I was gonna say, Derek, besides giving you a golf lesson, like, how can I help you? Like, seriously, serious business. Is there anything that I can do for you to help you?
Man, and likewise, and you know, I can't think of anything off the bat, but I mean, if anything comes up in the future, man, if I can be a resource, I always tell people, don't be afraid to ask me because I'm never afraid to say no. So if there's anything that you need my help with, likewise, you know, reach out to me, even if it's just for something like this, an introduction to somebody, definitely. And if you leave the door open for me to do the same, I appreciate that, my brother.
Absolutely. No question. How about you, Silas? Anything you need?
I may need the both of you to teach me some golf, man. So I might have to bring both of y'all out with me, man.
You can go with that. I'm scared of the Rona, man. Like I'm sheltered in place. What Wyclef say? Gone till November.
Yeah.
Like it's 2022. I'm in the house.
Silas, let me know what your schedule's like. I'll get you out there, my man.
All right, man. Sure thing, man. So again, man, I appreciate you guys more than you know. And I look forward to seeing you guys once this whole Corona thing is over. And again, thank you all for all that you've all done for me, you know, throughout my adult life, man. It's really appreciated.
For sure. Anytime, my man.
Okay. All right, peace, guys.
All right, we'll be in touch.
All
right.
Peace.